Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the April 26th, 2021 meeting of the Planning Board of the Town of Chatham. My name is Catherine Halpern. I'm Chair of the Planning Board of the Town of Chatham. And tonight's meeting is being conducted by remote participation only. I will go over a few points regarding our remote participation procedures. I do want to mention that this meeting is being broadcast live on Channel 18 and will also be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing. I do need to ask if anyone is recording the meeting. It is all right to record the meeting, but you need to notify us. I'll give you a few seconds in case you're on mute. All right, so let's go through some of the points regarding remote participation. First, if I could ask if everyone who's connected to the meeting, if you're not a planning board member and you're not speaking, would you kindly disable the video on your computer connection? And whether connected by phone or computer, could you kindly also mute your microphone? So everyone except for the planning board members, you can leave your video on, but kindly mute your microphones, although we are having some difficulty with the video tonight. So pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 30A 18, and the Governor's March 23rd, 2020 order, imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Chatham Planning Board is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410. That's 1-508-945-4410. And the conference ID number is 576-880-355#. That's 576-880-355#. You can also join the meeting online using the Microsoft Teams app through the link that's in the agenda that's posted on the town website on the planning board page. Despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access, and as I mentioned earlier, we will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. And just to note that if you're connected by phone and you are speaking and you inadvertently become muted, you can press *6 on your phone. So I just want to go through some of the procedural steps. Again, as I mentioned, unless you've been recognized by the chair and you are speaking, kindly mute your microphones, whether connected by phone or by computer. Kindly mute your microphones, and everyone, if connected by computer, with the exception of planning board members, could you kindly also disable your video? We'll begin the meeting with a roll call of all the board members. After the board has discussed a matter on the agenda, I will ask if there are citizens or non-planning board members participating in the call who have comments or questions. And then when you're recognized by the chair, could you repeat your name before you begin speaking? And also, if you're connected by phone, please give out the last 4 digits of your phone number. We just need to always be able to clearly identify who's speaking on the call. And as I mentioned, after an agenda point has been discussed by the public body, by the planning board, I will request any questions or comments from citizens participating in the call. We will be taking, the planning board will be taking all votes tonight by roll call. And at the end of the meeting, we'll close the meeting with a verbal confirmation, and we'll also note the time of adjournment. I do want to make one point that we do have a public hearing on our agenda for tonight, and there are specific procedures for that, and I will go over those specifically when we come to that agenda point. Before I do the roll call of the board members, could I ask if any board member has to recuse themselves from any matter on tonight's meeting agenda? All right, there being no recusals, let's go through. As I mentioned, Arthur Sproul will not be joining us tonight. So Warren Chain, are you present?
Warren Chain, present.
Thank you. Tom Gagan.
Tom Gagan, present.
Thank you. Bob Wertschafter.
Present.
Thank you. Bob Dubus.
Bob Dubus, present.
And Roger Griffin.
Roger Griffin, present.
And this is Catherine Halpern. I'm also present. So let's go to the first item on our agenda, and that's the minutes from the April 12th meeting. You've also, planning board members, you've also been provided with a hard copy of the presentation that we received on April 12th from Terry Whalen on the airport issues pertaining to West Chatham. But let me ask from the board, are there any changes, corrections, amendments to the minutes from our meeting April 12th? There being none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes from our April 12th meeting?
This is Warren Chain, I so moved.
Thank you. May I have a second to that motion?
Bob
Roger
Dubus,
Griffin,
I'll
will second
second
that
it.
motion. Roger.
All right, thank you. We had both Roger and Bob Dubus. So let's do our roll call vote. Warren Chain,
Warren Chain, approved.
Tom Gagan,
Tom Gagan, approve.
Bob Wertschafter,
Wertschafter, approve.
Bob Dubus,
Bob Dubus, approve.
Roger Griffin,
Roger Griffin, approve.
and this is Catherine Halpern. I also approve the minutes from the April 12th meeting. All right, so the next item on our agenda is the public hearing. And this is a public hearing pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, adoption or change of zoning ordinances or bylaws, protective zoning bylaw amendment, amendment map change pertaining to 1610 and 0 Main Street properties. The purpose of this article is to amend the basic zoning district designation of the subject parcels from R20 to municipal, as the intended use of the subject property is a municipal use, which should be designed in accordance with the protective zoning bylaws requirements for the municipal district. Before we begin, I just want to read the public hearing procedures. The first step is that the public notice will be read by the planning board clerk, who's Roger Griffin. Then there will be a presentation by the applicant. Following that, we'll have time for questions and comments from the planning board. And again, I will recognize planning board members to speak. And following that, we will welcome public statements in favor of the application. Following that, the chair will read correspondence pertaining to this matter if we've received any correspondence. Following that is public statements opposing the application. Then there will be a chance for rebuttal, which is done by the applicant. And then again, further opportunity for board comments and questions and open discussion. After that, in general, the board will vote to close the hearing and enter formal deliberations. Once the board votes to close the hearing and enter formal deliberations, there can be no further public participation. And then if the board finishes deliberation and votes on the matter, the public hearing is ended. And it is, as I noted, audience participation is not permitted during board deliberations. All right, so with that being said, I'm going to ask our clerk, Roger Griffin, to read the public notice regarding this matter.
Okay, in accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Chatham Planning Board will hold a remote public hearing on Monday, April 26, 2021 at 5 p.m. to take public comments on the following proposed amendments to the protective zoning bylaw. Article 4, Protective Zoning Bylaw Amendment, map change for 1610 and 0 Main Street properties. To see if the town will vote to amend its existing protective zoning map and by rezoning 25,310 square feet of land at 1610 Main Street, further identified on the assessors map as 9E-2-1 and 33,080 square feet of land at 0 Main Street, further identified on the assessors map as 9E-2-2 from the R20 Basic District to the Municipal Basic District as depicted on the attached map. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of open meeting law, General GL Chapter 30A, Section 20, and the Governor's March 23, 2020 order imposing limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this hearing of the Chatham Planning Board will be conducted via remote participation. The hearing will be accessible by interested parties in the general public through the following link, which is https://teams.microsoft.com. Any person interested in wishing to be heard on the zoning proposal should call the teleconference number to join the hearing, 508-945-4410. Conference ID number is 576-880-355#. In the event that Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law in general, and the Governor's March 23, 2020 order imposing limitations of the number of people that may gather in one place terminate on or before April 26, 2021, protective zoning bylaw public hearing. The Chatham Planning Board will hold this public hearing on April 26, 2021 at 5 p.m. in the Town Hall Annex Large Meeting Room at 261 George Ryder Road in Chatham, Mass. To take public comments on the proposed amendments for the protective zoning bylaw. The full text and map for the proposed protective zoning bylaw amendment can be found on the town website, www.chathams-mass.gov/planning/board.
Thank you. Thank you, Roger. So now we'll have the presentation by the applicant, and I believe Terry Whalen, will you be speaking?
Yes, and I'm going to share my
Thank
screen
you.
real quickly, if that's okay. So a couple of quick slides to go through. So with that, thank you, Madam Chair, for recognizing me to speak, and then also for the clerk for reading the notice. So I'm going to start sharing my screen here.
Thank you, Terry.
You're welcome. And not to be too repetitive, but for the record, my name is Terry Whalen with the Town of Chatham. I am the Principal Projects and Operations Administrator. And just tonight, I'm going to provide an overview of the action that's being requested, the protective zoning bylaw amendment map change for 1610 and 0 Main Street. And again, the purpose is, as noted on the agenda, it states that the purpose of this article is to amend the basic zoning district designation of the subject parcels from R20 to municipal, as the intended use of the subject property is a municipal use, which should be designed in accordance with the protective zoning bylaws requirements for the municipal district. So building on the clerk's reading of the description of the article in the text form, this is basically the graphical representation of the two parcels that are subject to this proposal that include 1610 and 0 Main Street, and then the referenced assessors maps as well of 9E2-1 and 9E2-2. So those are the two proposals. They're currently zoned R20 and are proposed to be changed to the M zone, which now we have an article number, which would Article 16 on the town meeting warrant. And for a little some general context on the proposal, where the request comes from. Board members might remember last spring, the project team for the new COA facility, building on the site designation by the Board of Selectmen and the acceptance of a concept for a new COA facility at 1610 Main Street. And I'm going to refer to the two parcels as 1610 collectively, just for simplicity's sake here. So again, the project team was before the planning board presenting information on the concept. And basically the concept, even though that was back in 2020 with the COVID-19 pandemic, this project did not go forward at annual town meeting in 2020, but was deferred due to the pandemic to be resubmitted at annual town meeting in 2021. So there's been essentially no changes to what the board had seen previously, and the proposal still stands with essentially the two parcels comprising what we're calling 1610 Main Street, or would become 1610 Main Street if approved. So again, we have the same basic concept of adding a building, a two-level building that would be 10,965 square feet of gross square foot floor area, parking lot, drainage improvements, lighting, sidewalks, etc., landscaping as well to finish off the project. So essentially, it's the same proposal that's going forward. And again, we just have a rendering for some context, as I'm just going to introduce a couple of quick thoughts. In your package, Ally had put together, she did include a markup of the schedule of dimensional requirements. I took that one step further and also added for some context, or for the board to understand where there may be some variance, or differences with between the two districts. So the bottom addition to the table here, I just put COA, not because of the district, but because it's the COA concept, and just for context, putting the dimensions, both some of the offsets, setbacks, and coverage dimensions from the project, so you get a sense of what's being requested. And I think you'll notice that most of the requested, as the concept lays out right now, quite frankly, are closely, fit with what the setbacks and coverages might be for an R20 district. So, but again, just putting this for context. So, for instance, the frontage is 213 linear feet. The road setback would be 25 feet for the building. 17 would be the closest it would be to an abutter, and that's actually on the east side to the open space parcel. It's not on the coast. The project is the limit of disturbance. The closest it would be to the Inland Conservancy District would be 75 feet. The lot coverage, impervious area would be 53%. Excuse me. The max building coverage would be 11%. The regular, the green area would be 47%. The building is, as I mentioned, 2 levels or 2 stories, would be a maximum of 30 feet high, and the minimum parking setbacks would be 23 from the road and 10 feet from the abutters. So again, most of those are pretty close. While there are less restrictive requirements here for some of the aspects of it, again, generally the design was intended to provide as much buffering and open space as possible. And with that, I'll just transition into, again, this article is coupled with an article, which is Article 15, seeking both funding for design development or contract documents, and then also funding the construction. I just want to point out that if the broader COA article, that Article 15, does fail to achieve the required 2/3 majority, this zoning article would not be moved by the select board at town meeting. And with that,
Great.
I'm glad, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great. This is Catherine. Thank you, Terry. That was a very clear presentation. Let me just go through the board. I'm hearing a little feedback. So again, I'm going to ask anyone who's not speaking, not recognized by the chair, would you kindly mute your microphones? I see a couple of people connected by phone who are not muted. Would you kindly mute your microphones? That will help with the feedback. Let me ask Warren Chain if you have questions or comments for Terry.
Yes, Terry, this is Warren. Sorry you can't see me. I'm one of the ones with video issues. I have only an issue that for which I'd like just clarification. I think I know the answer, but the agreement by which the parcels are being transferred to the town, I believe, make it quite clear that the donation is for the exclusive use by the town of building a council on aging facility. So first, just is that the case, that although it's zoned municipal, it can't be used for anything other than the purpose for which it is being donated? So the other municipal uses, such as government offices, become irrelevant. It can only be a council on aging. Is that correct?
Yes, so that agreement would be correct, yes.
Now, there is no council on aging final approved plan or building permit, but is it also the case that that when there is a final approved site plan building permit issued, that it would be that facility which would be the only facility that could be built on that site? In other words, no one could decide to throw out all the work done and build a totally different conceptual council on aging. What we have seen and been presented as preliminary would become the council on aging for which this donation is being made. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So, and typically through the design development, so that's why when I pointed out some of those numbers, those are from the concept. So there could be what typically happens through design development. Again, we're not going to change the concept, it'd be a 2-level building. There might be some push and pull on layout here and there a little bit, but nothing significant. We did notify or identify through the process a change, and again, it may or may not even result in any change in the footprint. But there, in reviewing the individual floor layout, there's a desire to change, basically move one of the professional offices to the lower level and moving mechanical space to a different location to accommodate or to better accommodate situations like we have right now with COVID-19. So there could be some those types of things, or some minor changes in those coverage, or the setbacks a little bit could go. But again, the intent would be to hold all the major setbacks and not to put anything in, for instance, in the rear or the northern portion of the property due to its environmental sensitivity. So, that is also, again, subject to Conservation Commission review and approval. So, but again, the intent is not to put anything beyond, the extent of the environmental impact would be. Again, I don't want to say exact, but it's going to be very, very close in that we did do a fairly detailed feasibility study. But again, there's a need to push a little bit, but that's generally, what you see is the concept and the general parameters.
And you're responding to just my interest that in rezoning this, we have already seen what this facility basically is going to look like. It's not going to all of a sudden reappear in a different form for whatever reason. You've also, I believe, addressed, but just for clarity as well, rezoning to municipal doesn't have any effect, I don't think, on the requirements for observing the Conservation Commission rules regarding setbacks from the wetland, correct?
Right. The only thing that it would change would be there is a requirement. So in the M district, technically there's no inland conservancy district setback. But again, from a practical perspective, we are we are honoring that. And again, there's only a small bit of area that triggers jurisdiction, and that is between the 50 foot or the inner portion of the conservancy district setbacks and the 100-foot buffer zone. So again, the intent is to have a very minimized impact in the environmental area, and quite frankly, and all the proper mitigation and controls during both construction and after the fact with stormwater and stormwater treatment and that type of thing.
I do appreciate that, but again, is it just your intent to honor that, or is it a requirement that you adhere to the conservation?
Yeah, we still, yeah, whatever's applicable. Sorry, whatever's applicable under conservation. Again, it doesn't take us at any other requirements. And again, we'd be back before the planning board as well for both pre-app and pre-app and final site plan as well. So it doesn't, in Chatham, we don't get any relief, if you will, from any other applicable local requirements. So that wouldn't change.
Thank you, Terry. I appreciate it. I have no other comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Warren. Tom Gagan, comments or questions for Terry?
Yes, Tom Gagan. My question is, are there any terms or conditions on this donation to the town that would be negatively affected if in fact 1610 as a future COA building does not get approved? And how would that then come back in terms of the zoning change to municipal?
Right. So there are kind of two scenarios where, the first scenario, and I'm sorry if I didn't explain it clearly enough. So if in fact, if the initial request, so it's actually it's a multiple step process to move forward, with the concept into design development. So this project requires funding for developing the design, design development documents and the construction funding. So that's kind of the core approval. So if Article 15 is not approved, there would be no reason to move Article 16 at town meeting, in that we wouldn't be putting a privately owned property into a municipal zone. So it would remain R20. Another scenario, though less likely, but what could also happen would be if the project received both Article 15 and 16, which the first one, Article 15 being the design and construction funding, Article 16 being the zoning change. This project, because it also is requires a debt exclusion if in one scenario, if the both Articles 15 and 16 passed, and if it did not prevail at the ballot box, which is a simple minority, simple majority, not a 2/3 vote. Again, the zone change would not be effectuated. So town council has looked into that and has confirmed it with the AG. And essentially, again, if any of those, where there was any fail, if you will, in any of those aspects, there would not be a municipal zone created on private property.
Thank you, Terry. Tom Gagan again. So there is a built-in safety valve for the town and also for the donor. And there's a series of items, governmental items, that must be satisfied before the zoning overlay that we would approve as a planning board would become in effect.
That's correct. And then there's also you also have the going through the full process. Then you also have the Attorney General review of, if everything was approved to move forward, then there's also that review as well by the Attorney General before it were truly fully rezoned. So there's that step as well after town meeting.
Tom Gagan, Terry, thank you for your explanation.
You're welcome.
Great.
I have no further questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Tom. Bob Wirtschafter.
I have no questions at this time.
Okay, thank you, Bob. And how about Bob Dubus? Bob Dubus, you're on mute.
I'm right here.
Okay.
I really don't have too much more to say, or really nothing to say about it right now. Thank you.
Thank you. And Roger Griffin, do you have any questions for Terry?
Yeah, Terry, just a general question. As we're looking at it right now, say we get to the next step. Do we foresee there being any possibility that we would have to, scale back the building due to conservation, or are we basically feeling that if we go to the next step, we'll be able to probably, create the facility that we're looking at this point?
Yeah, so we're it's similar to coming in and meeting with the the planning board, the OPM and the project team also met, the engineers as well with conservation staff as well. And again, pretty confident that there's not going to be, again, and not to say that, there might be a foot here or there, or, where we have full detailed information, or the design, or a head wall or something like that, but nothing anticipated with layout or anything like that. So we're anticipating that it's, a permittable project as concepted, if concepted is a word.
Excellent. Terry, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anything
Thanks.
else, Roger?
No, I'm fine. Thank you, Catherine.
All right, thanks. This is Catherine. So I just want to, reiterate that this particular article to rezone these parcels is contingent upon the previous article, Article 15, which is the approval for the Council on Aging development plan. And so this article at annual town meeting would not be introduced by the Board of Selectmen unless Article 15 is passed by 2/3 majority vote of the town. So my understanding is that it's a series of contingencies. The donation is contingent upon the COA, the approval by the town by 2/3 majority of the voting citizens of Chatham to approve the Council on Aging project on this property, and also the rezoning, even the introduction of this particular article to rezone to municipal is also contingent upon Article 15 passing by 2/3 majority. So Terry, I just want to verify with you if that's a correct understanding. Oh, you're on mute, Terry.
Sorry about that. It actually just warned me I was on mute, so it must pick that
Okay.
up. And I apologize. Yeah, so that is correct. And then also, as I mentioned, there's also another step that the project would also require, the approval
Right.
of the ballot box as well for the debt exclusion article, and obviously, ultimately, approval by the Attorney General's office for the
Right.
article.
Okay, exactly. So just a reminder to the board then, our actions that we would take, that we would vote on later on in the hearing, our potential vote would be to recommend, or we could vote to not recommend this amendment to town meeting, but we would do it with the understanding of all those contingencies. So with that being said, if there's no further initial questions and comments from the board, I would like to open this up to statements from the public in favor of the application. So could you raise your hand if there's anyone who wanted to speak in favor of the application? I'm having a little difficulty seeing raised hands. I see one raised hand. I don't see a name, but you are on mute. So.
It's Elaine Gibbs, and I
Hello, Elaine. Go ahead.
Question. In the legacy agreement section with Phil Marsh, it says that donation is predicated upon initial use. I've got to read this off my phone. I apologize. Initial use of the parcel by the Council on Aging because that's the immediate need of the town. As the needs may evolve in the future, the property may thereafter be dedicated to use for other municipal purposes in keeping with the donor's objective to provide an anchor in the West Chatham Neighborhood Center. So that's saying that if we 10, 15 years from now, it's no longer needed as a Council on Aging, that we can only use it for municipal reasons. We can't sell it to the highest bidder to be used for some other purpose, that it always has to remain a municipal building or for municipal purposes. I think that's what it says.
Terry or Ally, did you want to respond to Elaine's question? Terry, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm just, so that legal compliance question, I'm not, so again, but I guess what I'm reiterating in response to the comment before, the intent right now is to, for this to go forward as a Council on Aging. Any changes like to any land, would probably trigger other, town meeting approvals, whether it was disposal from the perspective of selling or other changes for other municipal uses that most likely would require funding or other considerations or changes. I guess is about the best answer I could give right now on that. But speculating out if something were to change 10 or 15 years out.
Yeah, because what it says is it can only be used for municipal purposes. And the concern I have moving forward is if we find out we don't need it anymore and we can't put it on the open market to sell it. And I believe that's what this says, that this is a restriction on the property, which puts us in a position where we couldn't, as I said, we couldn't sell it. We'd have to keep it in the town as a town asset, even if it's not being used. So I guess.
Yeah, and again, I'm sorry to interrupt. Yeah, so I think again that is the intent and purpose and that would be as we would move forward. But I always hate to say that there's never ever any possibility of something else changing with a proper approvals and conditions. And again, but Chatham has been very strong on honoring all its agreements in the past to the full extent. So I'm not sure that we would ever entertain that. But again, I can't speak for boards or future boards what they may or may not do.
Well, I think the law, we found that with other properties that we own, that when they're donated, there's a 30-year period of time where they are absolutely can't be overturned by town meeting or anyone. So, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Elaine. Any other public comments in favor of this application? And again, I'm having a little trouble seeing hands raised. I don't see any additional hands raised. I'll just give you at least a few seconds in case you're muted. All right, there being no further comments, public comments in favor of the application. The next step is to read correspondence, but I believe we have received no correspondence. Is that correct, Ally? Did anything come in?
That is correct. We have not received any correspondence.
Okay, thank you, Ally. So now we take public statements opposing the application. Is there anyone connected to the call who would like to make a statement in opposition to this application?
Yes, Elaine, I would, based on the answer regarding the legacy feature of it, I would be opposed to that with that wording in there. I think it is very restrictive for us that if we find out our needs change, we should be able to sell the building for what we paid for it. if we have to.
All right. Thank you, Elaine. Any other comments from the public in opposition to this application? All right, and there is the opportunity for rebuttal. I think, Terry, you've addressed Elaine's concern, but do you have any further comments?
Yeah, my only other further comment is that I can get a more definitive answer for council and get that to
Great.
Ms. Gibbs.
Yeah, and maybe we should present it publicly. If you could present it to the planning board as a whole, that would be good to get a more clear answer from town council regarding that
Thank you.
matter.
I just feel more comfortable with it coming from council.
Thank you, Terry. Okay, great. Great. Any other points, Terry, from your side before we go to further board comments from the planning board?
No, I'm all set unless you have any other additional questions.
I don't. Let's just go through board members and see if you have any additional comments or questions. Warren Chain.
This is Warren, Terry. I have no other comments or questions.
Thank you. And Tom Gagan.
None, Madam Chairman. Tom Gagan.
Thank you. Bob Wirtschafter.
No more, thank you.
Bob Dubus.
Bob Dubus, no comments.
Roger Griffin.
Roger Griffin, no comments.
And this is Catherine Halpern. I have no further comments. So at this point, the board actually needs to vote if we want to close the hearing and enter formal deliberations, and then we would do another vote whether to recommend or not to recommend this article. And just a reminder that once we close the public hearing, there's no further audience participation permitted. So do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Bob Dubus, I move to close the hearing.
Thank you. And may I have a second?
Bob Wirtschafter, seconds.
Thank you. So let's do a roll call vote. Warren Chain,
Warren Chain, approved.
Tom Gagan,
Tom Gagan, approve.
Bob Wirtschafter,
Wirtschafter approved.
Bob Dubus,
Bob Dubus, approve.
Roger Griffin,
Roger Griffin, approve.
and this is Catherine Halpern. I also approve that we close the public hearing. And now, unless there's any further discussion, I would suggest that I would ask for a motion that we recommend this zoning bylaw amendment map change as it appears in the annual town meeting warrant, understanding all the contingencies that are in place. Do I have a motion?
This is Warren Chain. I so move.
Do I have a second?
Bob Wirtschafter, seconds.
All right, let's do our roll call vote. Warren Chain,
Warren Chain, I approve.
Tom Gagan,
Tom Gagan, I approve.
Bob Wirtschafter,
Bob Wirtschafter approved.
Bob Dubus,
Bob Dubus, approve.
Roger Griffin,
Roger Griffin, approve.
and this is Catherine Halpern. I approve. So the planning board has voted to accept and to recommend this article and this amendment to the zoning bylaw to annual town meeting. Thank you, and thank you, Terry, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good evening.
So let's go to the next item on our agenda. We have two approval not required matters concerning Happy Valley Road. The first one is map 60 and 70, lot 14A and Bog. And this is for Gary Darman, trustee of Happy Valley Chatham Realty Trust. And this is a proposed conveyance of land. Do I have a presenter for this matter?
Good afternoon, Thad Eldridge here.
Hello, Thad. Please go ahead.
Thank you much. So this is a simple land swap. Gary Darman owns Lot A, or the Metters lot, and they're working with the Cranberry Bog owners, and it will be a 2,033 square foot swap of land. There's also an easement that's going to be going into the south. It's labeled D. If you could scroll down a little bit further, Ellie. Thank you. The old tracks around that cranberry bog go over the Darman property, and the main purpose of this is to straighten that out. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, Terry, is it possible are you screen sharing or is it Ally it's Ally who's screen sharing? Is it, can
I'm
you
screen
use your,
sharing.
yeah, is it possible to use your pointer just to show the board and the public exactly what's being swapped and what's happening?
It's the bow tie right below that. So parcel B points to a triangle that's currently owned by Gary Darman. And then parcel A, which is hiding in the cranberry bog, is pointing to a triangle that is owned by the cranberry bog, Little Scoop LLC.
All right, and the two will just be swapped. Is that
Yeah.
correct? Okay,
Yeah.
great. So let's just go through the board or any questions for Thad on this one. It is an approval not required. What we would do we would vote to endorse the approval not required plan. Warren Chain, do you have any questions or comments for Thad?
No, this is Warren Chain. I don't have any comments or questions.
Tom Gagan,
Tom Gagan, I have no questions.
Bob Wertschafter,
Workchapter, no questions.
Bob Dubus,
Bob Dubus, no questions.
Roger Griffin,
Roger Griffin, no questions.
and this is Catherine. I have no questions. So with that being done, may I have a motion to endorse the A&R plan entitled Land Swap Division Plan, Happy Valley Road, prepared for Happy Valley Chatham Realty Trust and Bucks Creek Realty Trust, dated April 7th, 2021.
Bob
Roger.
Dubus make the motion.
All right, let's say Bob Dubus makes the motion and may I have a second.
Roger Griffin, I'll second that.
Thank you. So let's do a roll call vote. Warren Chain,
This is Warren Chain. I approve.
Tom Gagan,
Tom Gagan, I approve.
Bob Wertschafter,
Bob Workchapter, approve.
Bob Dubus,
Bob Dubus approve.
Roger Griffin.
Roger Griffin approved.
This is Catherine Halpern. I also approve. Thank you. And now we have another approval not required also concerning Happy Valley Road. This is map 7D, lot 2 and bog for Gary Darman, trustee of the Bucks Creek Realty Trust and East Southeast LLC. Again, this is a proposed conveyance of land. And Thad, can you explain this one to us and for the public?
Absolutely. You're the record Thad Eldridge, he's Southeast. So this one's slightly different. The previous, we were doing an even swap to preserve zoning. This one, I can say that there's no concern. The subject property is landlocked. We're also cleaning up a mistake in the original plan of the cranberry bog. So parcels E and F were not shown in the original plan for the cranberry bog, but they were technically conveyed along with the cranberry bog. That's now being cut apart, and parcel F will go from the cranberry bog to Gary Darman. Parcel E will remain with the cranberry bog. Parcels C and D are formerly the Buck parcel, and those were acquired by Gary Darman. He's cutting parcel C out and granting that to the Little Scoop Cranberry Bog, and he's retaining parcel D. If it makes anybody feel better, I am contracted to create an 81X plan when all is done that shows these land swaps or dissolves these land swaps and just shows the Darman parcel combined and this part of the Little Scoop property. Hopefully that'll keep the record straight in the future.
Right. Thank you, Thad. Let's go through the board, see if there's any questions. Warren Chain.
This is Warren. Thad, is there any intent to come forward with a development plan for any of these parcels, or are we just housekeeping here?
when we first started working with Gary Darman and his associates, we were looking at, could this be subdivided? There are a few acres here. The trouble is the adequacy of way question, because Happy Valley Road is a dirt road. And they've given up on that. They're just looking to move forward probably with a single family development. The Little Scoop folks, they have their development on the other side of the bog, and this is really to augment their cranberry bog.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
No other
Okay.
questions.
Thank you, Warren. Tom Gagan?
I have no further questions. Tom Gagan.
Thank you. Bob Wertschafter?
Bob Wertschafter, no questions.
Bob Dubus?
Bob Dubus, no questions.
Roger Griffin?
Roger Griffin, no questions.
And this is Catherine. I have no questions. Again, I would ask for a motion to endorse the A&R plan entitled Division Plan Happy Valley Road, prepared for Happy Valley Chatham Realty Trust and Bucks Creek Realty Trust, dated April 7th, 2021. Do I have a motion to endorse this A&R plan?
Bob
Bob
Wertschafter.
Dubus will make the motion again.
Okay, let
All
Bob
right.
do it.
All right, Bob Dubus, motion, and may I have a second? Bob Wertschafter, do you second? All
Yeah.
right, so Bob Wertschafter, second. Let's do a roll call vote. Warren Chain,
This is Warren Chain. I approve.
Tom Gagan,
I approve.
Bob Wertschafter,
I approve.
Bob Dubus,
Bob Dubus approves.
Roger Griffin,
Roger Griffin, approve.
and this is Catherine Halpern. I also approve that we endorse this A&R. And thank you, Thad.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you. All right. The next item on our agenda is an amended site plan review. This is regarding a change of use from a bank to an art gallery for 895 Main Street. And I think Susan Ladu, will you present for us?
I will. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're a little faint.
Okay.
Can you
I'll speak
put up the
louder.
volume? Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Susan.
Yep. We own the property at 895 Main Street, and I believe the board approved about a year or so ago the change of use that was a temporary use for for Liberty Commons and their rehab facility during when the COVID outbreak first occurred. And so they needed more space. So their use ended, and we've just signed a year-long temporary rental agreement lease with Odin Smith for studio and gallery at this site. And you can see the aerial. I've submitted the aerial and the floor plans with some dimensions and square footage of how that will be used. Yeah, unfortunately, that's a little bit faint. But I do detail in my letter. So I'll just quickly go through that. It's a temporary lease of the building to use as an art gallery. And the building is approximately 2,630 square feet, and about 1,100 square feet of that of the former Santander Bank building. The lobby and meeting room will be used for display of art. The existing office, storage, kitchen, and restroom spaces will remain as is, and we estimate a maximum of 1 to 2 employees on the site. And again, we've submitted the existing floor plan with the proposed gallery spaces noted, and an A&R plan that was done, and the aerial photo have also been included in the package. And no changes are proposed to the exterior whatsoever. And I've been working remotely, but I'm in town this week. So I did go to the site today to confirm the number of parking spaces. And I counted actually 20 spaces on the ground, not including the drive-through. So I don't know if that would count as a parking space, even though the drive-through will not be used as a drive-through with this use. So I was counting 21 from looking at the aerial and other information. So it is 20, but we still expect the existing parking area to provide more than enough parking for the proposed gallery use. And other than that, the gallery use is allowed per the bylaw, but it is a different use from a bank or even the previous temporary use that was allowed by the planning board approval. And so I'm open for questions.
Okay, thank you, Susan. This is Catherine. I'm just going to point out a couple of things that are included in Ally's summary for the board. First of all, the parking seems to be adequate. We have not received comment from the fire department, but the Department of Natural Resources has no issues, Health Department no issues. I did want to mention that HBDC did review this, as Ally mentioned, at their April 21st meeting, and they have given their approval. So I did want to mention that. And with that being said, I'm going to see if the board has questions or comments for Susan. So Warren Chain.
Yeah, Susan, Warren Chain. Just for clarity, a temporary change of use is what's being referenced here, and you have just said you've signed a 1-year lease. Does that mean that after 1 year you would need to come back to us to renew the lease, or it would the approval to have a temporary use as an art gallery would no longer be valid? Is that what you are proposing?
I believe so. I don't know if that it would be. I guess it might be more of a question for what the board
Right.
feels is appropriate. But yep, at the end of the year, if the board votes to do so, we'd come back, and if Odin feels like it's been successful in this on this site and she wants to renew it, we would come back and ask for an extension, possibly.
This is Catherine. If I could just chime in here, another course of action the board could take, which is a little more regular, is we could just simply approve the change of use. And if you did renew the lease, then that change of use would still be in place. If you decided to lease to someone else or make other changes, then you would come before the board for another change of use. So that might be a simpler course of action rather than doing a temporary change of use, is simply for the board to approve a change of use. Does that make sense, Susan?
Yeah, we'd
Okay.
be fine with that as well.
All right, great. Warren, do you have any other questions for Susan?
No, thank you, Madam Chairman, but your comments were exactly what I was moving
Right.
for, because it didn't
Right.
seem to me that the temporary nature of this was relevant, given that they'd have to come back if they were to change the use. So, but thank you.
Yes.
No other questions?
Yes, no, that's absolutely correct, Warren. Tom Gagan.
Tom Gagan, I agree with the interpretation or the suggestion from the chair. I think this board is going to either approve or not approve of the change of use. But the idea of temporary is, I think, irrelevant. I think we're just here to approve this use as requested. And if the art gallery wants to stay there for the next 10,000 years, all the better for the property owner. We never want to stop art in the town. And I just think that your approach, Madam Chair, is the correct one. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Tom. Bob Wirtschafter.
Yeah, I totally agree that this is a change of use and that's it. It's the use till they come back and tell us they want to use it for something else. So I have no other further comments.
Great. And Bob Dubus.
Bob Dubus, I'm going on with Tom and Bob and you, Catherine, on the thing. Change of use. And if there's something different later on in life, they can come before the board and change it.
Okay. And Roger Griffin, any comments, any questions?
No, I think I agree with that. It's a good use at this point. I guess the only thing, Susan, are they going to be open year round or is this seasonal? Or do we know?
I don't know myself. I can always find out and shoot Ally an email to get the answer to you.
I don't think we need to know, but I think I was just curious. Yeah, it'd be great because it'd be nice. Obviously it depends with what they have for business, but yeah, I'm just kind of curious if you could find out.
Sure.
Great.
No questions?
Great. Thank you, Roger. And this is Catherine. I'll just mention that as I understand it, there are no changes proposed by the new tenant to the outside of the building or to the site plan. So Ally's mentioned that we really don't need to require a performance bond or anything like that for this site plan approval, which is basically to approve the change of use. And I hear from the board that we can omit the temporary. We can just look at this as an approval of the change of use. Ally lists a couple of conditions, which are standard conditions. If we approve the site plan change of use, condition 1, the physical features and data shown on the site plan represent the approved design and parking layout of the subject property. Any deviation from the specified uses and layout constitutes a violation of planning board approval unless it is reviewed and approved by the planning board. And condition 2, all exterior lighting shall be downward casting and shall be designed so as to not illuminate areas off the property. I'm just going to ask the board if anyone feels we need any additional conditions. I'll give you a few moments in case you're on mute.
Tom Gagan.
Yes, go ahead, Tom.
My only question about the layout of the parking lot, not the physical layout, but the striping and the arrows. I don't want to get involved as the board member, but for that decision, but I would ask the applicant if any of the present markings on the parking lot ground with arrows would create any problems or issues for the new tenant. And again, I'm not making a recommendation that they change, but maybe they want to eliminate some of the arrows.
Is that a question for Susan? Susan, did you want to reply to that, to Tom's question?
Yeah, the only thing I had, I mean, I actually like it myself. Again, I was over at the site today. I think it's a good traffic flow pattern for the site. And I don't know that it's confusing at all. I have not heard anything from Odin that she wants anything changed there. So I would just leave it as it is.
Okay, thank you, Susan.
Madam Chair, Tom Gagan, I'm
yes,
not recommending any changes. I just asked the question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tom. Any other questions or comments from the board before we move to a motion to vote? If there's no other comments and questions, I would ask for a motion to approve this site plan change of use with the conditions as stated, which are our standard conditions for the proposed temporary art gallery based on the fact that the application meets the necessary requirements and criteria for approval pursuant to the protective zoning bylaw with the conditions as stated earlier. Do I have a motion to that effect?
Worcester moves.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
This is Warren Chain, I second.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Warren Chain.
Warren Chain, I approve.
Tom Gagan.
Tom Gagan, I approve.
Bob Wirtschafter.
Worcester, I approve.
Bob Dubus.
Bob Dubus, I approve.
Roger Griffin.
Roger Griffin, approve.
And this is Catherine Halpern. I also approve. So thank you, Susan.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You too. All right. The last item on our agenda is a formal site plan review. And this is for 221 Kroll Road, the Town of Chatham Department of Public Works. And this is for the replacement of the salt shed. And Weston and Sampson Engineering are the consultants. And I think do we have Tyler presenting? Yes. Please go ahead. And I think you're on mute, Tyler.
Hello, my name is Tyler Coffalici. I'm with Weston and Sampson Engineers representing the DPW facility, DPW department. We had met previously with the informal meeting where we reviewed demolishing the existing salt shed and replacing it with a high arch gambrel salt shed. Then the new proposed salt shed would provide a higher overall building height to provide a better function for minimizing damage for loaders or even allowing the function of dumping the salt directly in the salt shed. One of the items that was open last time we had met was whether or not we would be able to get the building height variance. And since we had met last, we did have the zoning board meeting and we did get an approval for the zoning height. And I guess that would be the only changes that have occurred since last time we met. We did submit a formal package answering some of your guys' questions. We did add some information about the airport. I'm not
Yes.
sure if we had getting confirmation that there's no issue there, but it seems like there is. And then if a board has any additional comments that they'd like me to address, more than open to.
Okay, this is Catherine. Thank you, Tyler. We did receive a graphic regarding the airport question that shows that the location of this property is well out of the runway protection zone and well out of the airport approach zones. And I think all the board members did receive that graphic. And I did just want to mention that one of our board members, Arthur Sprue, is not attending tonight, but he did send us an email that he would like more details on proposed stormwater management. And he asked us to ask that question. Could you comment on that, please?
Yeah, so we're not proposing any changes to the existing stormwater management. Out there is our catch basins that run to an oil water separator. They're called out on that plan right here, Allie. So to the left of the salt shed, you'll see an existing catch basin. And then above the salt shed, there's an existing catch basin, and they run to an existing drainage structure, which is an oil water separator, before running into the subsurface infiltration chambers. They're called, if you scroll up, they're called the leaching chambers. So according to the Mass Stormwater Handbook, as long as you have the catch basins and the oil water separator before infiltrating, then you meet the 44% TSS removal for land uses with higher potential pollutant loads. So no proposal of doing any changes, just reusing existing surface systems.
Great, thank you, Tyler. And I just also want to mention about our referral responses. We did receive a memo from Dr. Duncanson, and I'll just read that. I reviewed the site plan review formal application and for permitting only plan sheets 1 through 3 dated April 2021, prepared by Weston and Sampson, and have no comments. As additional information, improvements to stormwater drainage on the DPW are being planned as part of phase 2 of the Kroll Road project, with funding being sought at 2021 annual town meeting. So those are comments from Dr. Duncanson. Other referral responses, Zoning Board of Appeals, as mentioned on April 8th, the applicant was approved for a dimensional variance for the allowable height under the protective zoning bylaw. We have not received a response yet from the fire department. Health department has no issues. Conservation Commission, work on the salt shed at the DPW is outside of the wetland buffer. Assumed all work remains on the property and doesn't cross the bike trail. For some reason, Conservation Commission has no comment. And from the tree warden, there's no tree issues with this. We have not received a formal comment from the Airport Commission, but as stated, all planning board members did receive the graphic, and it's very clear that the location of this property is well outside the airport runway protection zone and approach zone. So with that being said, I'm going to ask board members if you have questions or comments for Tyler. Warren Chain.
This is Warren Chain, Tyler. Pursuant to Bob Duncanson's comment about there being ongoing improvements or work subject to approval at town meeting of stormwater runoff, I guess. Is any of those proposed changes going to affect the DPW site? Or are they just going to be out there that this runoff from the current site is going to be included with whatever is in Kroll Road?
I don't know the specifics of what they're planning for stormwater improvements. I believe I haven't heard any information that they would affect the new salt shed.
Okay, so
I wouldn't be able to speak to that.
Proposed there that would cause what you are presenting to us to be different.
You would say that again? Sorry, I didn't
There's
hear you.
that is being referred to by Mr. Duncanson that would cause what you have presented here to be different.
I don't believe so. Since there's already an existing salt shed, we're going right in the exact spot. I don't see this affecting any stormwater design.
Thank you very much. No other questions.
Okay, thank you, Warren. Tom Gagan,
Tom Gagan, no questions.
Bob Worcester.
No questions.
All right, Bob Dubus,
Bob Dubus, no questions.
Roger Griffin.
No, Roger Griffin, no questions.
This is Catherine Halpern. I also have no questions. I think everything's been clearly presented. So what the board's action tonight would be to approve this site plan with the conditions as stated. I'll review those conditions. They're the standard ones. Number one, the physical features and data shown on the site plan represent the approved design, and any deviation constitutes a violation of planning board approval. Condition 2, certification by a licensed professional that all site work is completed in compliance with the approved plan is required prior to the issuance of the certificate of use and occupancy by the building commissioner. And condition 3, that all exterior lighting shall be downward casting and shall be designed so as to not illuminate areas off the property. We did receive cut sheets describing the lighting. If the board is so inclined, I would welcome a motion to approve the site plan with conditions as stated for the proposal to replace the existing salt shed with a new high arch gambrel salt shed with a rear facing lean-to canopy for equipment storage based on the fact that the application meets the necessary requirements and criteria for approval pursuant to the protective zoning bylaw. Do I have a motion?
Well, this is Warren Chain. I so move.
Thank you. Do I have a second to that motion?
Roger Griffin, second.
All right, let's do a roll call vote. Warren Chain,
Warren Chain, approved.
Tom Gagan,
Tom Gagan, approve.
Bob Wirtschafter,
Bob Wirtschafter, approve.
Bob Dubus,
Bob Dubus, approve.
Roger Griffin,
Roger Griffin, approve.
and this is Catherine Halpern. I also approve. Thank you very much, Tyler.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
All right.
Tyler.
And before we adjourn, I'm just going to ask if there's anyone connected to the call from the public who would like to make any comments on any items that agenda items that we have discussed tonight. Any further comments from the public? All right, if there's no further comments from the public or the board, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Motion to adjourn. Bob Dubus.
Thank you, Bob. May I have a second to that motion?
Bob Wirtschafter, seconds.
All right, Warren Chain,
Warren Chain, approved.
Tom Gagan,
Approve.
Bob Wirtschafter,
Approved.
Bob Dubus. Bob Dubus, you're muted.
I approve. I'm coming.
All right, Roger Griffin.
Roger Griffin, approve.
And this is Catherine Halpern. I also approve that we adjourn tonight's meeting. Let's note the time as 6:17 p.m. And thank you again, everyone, for participating. And I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the evening. Thank you and good night.
You as well.